This video is brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. They are also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions.
So, this is Lars. Oh, yeah, the quick 1-2 shifts there. Hello and welcome to Spain. We are in Seville, or Sevilla if you're local, checking out the latest of the Porsche Taycan, the Porsche Taycan Turbo GT, which is the halo car of Porsche's growing electric car lineup. So we've seen a plethora of back and forth jousting, for lack of a better term, between Porsche and Tesla. I mean, it's kind of like Tesla versus everyone, it seems like, but there's been a lot of back and forth with records, like the Taycan set some records on the Ring and other tracks, and the Plaid set the records. And now the Taycan seems to be back on top with this one. This specifically is the Taycan Turbo GT with Weissach package equipped, which is interesting. We'll get to that in a bit, but it's been quite the machine lately, and it's got a lot of buzz in the news because, yes, broke some new records. But this back and forth dichotomy jousting is interesting because they're really vastly different price ranges. I don't even know if many people are cross-shopping per se. On one hand, it's amazing the performance you can get out of the Plaid, given the price. But on the other hand, I think the Plaid is, straight line speed is definitely its thing. Not even so much braking until recently with some of their improvements, but the Porsche Taycan and all of its car dynamics are why I think it does stand out a bit, and why I would probably pick one over the Plaid. Now, before all you Tesla fans come at me with the pitchforks in the comments, my two-car solution would be a Taycan and a Cybertruck, so I'd kind of have both. As the name might suggest, the Taycan Turbo GT picks up where the Taycan Turbo S left off. Now, the Turbo S is no slouch. I've had it at top click on the Autobahn. It's insane. It's a very, very excellent performance-minded car. But that's where they kind of think, oh, daily driving and performance kind of blended. This is where they take the performance to the next level. But if the Taycan Turbo GT is somehow not enough, that's where the Taycan Turbo GT with Weissach package comes into play. Holy shit.
I am extremely jealous because Jordan got to go to Spain to drive the crazy Taycans.
To eat jamon. Drive Taycans.
And so in this video, this is Jordan's full review of the Taycan Turbo GT and the Turbo GT with Weissach pack, which just seems crazy. But one thing I wanted to do was to at least give a little background on what we've done with Taycan and a little technical background on what the car is before we dive into your honestly fantastic review on track, ripping the new Weissach pack. That's the one you had on track.
Yeah.
So essentially I guess let's start our Taycan journey. I've driven Taycan since it launched years ago.
5 years now, almost?
Something like that. It's been a long time. And it was the first electric Porsche, of course, series production Porsche. And we did Cannonball record with it. We, Timon, Drew, and I drove it from New York to LA. We beat the record of electric cars. That was in a 4S, really showcasing the extreme charging performance and range and efficiency at high speed and pushing the CCS networks at the time. That has since been broken, but might be able to be broken again with the new car. Because with the old car, we did a bunch. We showcased it, of course, in performance settings on track, drifting it around in North Carolina at the old out-of-spec track. We have gone off-roading in the Cross Turismo.
Multiple times,
both rock crawling and on a dry lake bed against a Rivian, which was hilarious.
And it kind of did better than the Rivian in some cases.
It was much better than the Rivian, because the Rivian ran into thermal issues that the Taycan didn't.
I was like, I could do this all day.
I've driven them on road trips all across America and Europe, up into Norway, through Germany at top speed on multiple cars on multiple occasions. I've done Nürburgring laps with it. And that was on the J1.1. That was the original Taycan. And that was like 93 kilowatt hour usable, 270 kilowatt charging, huge power, 570 kilowatts, I think, maximum Turbo S with launch control. Fantastic car. Then fast forward to 2024, Taycan 2
J1 2.
Yeah, J1 2 launches, and this is a minor visual facelift, very minor. Some design changes. I actually think maybe the older car looks a bit better up front.
I agree. In my video, I mentioned, turbo looks better now because that's the only way to get the look.
I don't like the things on the turbo. I would go for the base car. I don't like the little cutout, the triangles in the bumper.
Yeah.
But I've already showcased all of this. If you guys have not watched it, a precursor to this video is my deep dive full tour of Taycan and Taycan Cross Turismo that I shot in the studio near Stuttgart where the cars were engineered, which was amazing. We showcased the charging performance. We did a full tour in the car. I walked you through the full model line and all of the changes. We now have up to a 95 kilowatt hour usable battery pack, or is it 97? It's 97 105 gross.
Yes.
So it's gotten lighter with significantly more capacity, so more range. It has new rear motors and inverters, so it's more efficient. Has a different 1-2 shift strategy, because again, this retains the 2-speed. And it charges like a monster.
Yep.
It's 320 kilowatt peak, but who cares about the peak? It's got the curve.
Yep.
It just charges insanely well. And I have a whole video about how well this car charges. And anyone interested in any kind of mobility should watch that video, because the way that this thing adds energy is unlike anything else. And then the efficiency story is I did a hypermile test, drove about 50, 55 miles an hour, low highway speed, I would say. And we did 465 miles on a single charge through rain, over mountain passes in the real world.
Further, yeah.
That's a 500-mile car.
Yeah.
If you drive it gently. It's crazy. So then, of course, you can get the Turbo S, which already had more power base than the old car had when using launch control, and it's absolutely insane, and it comes with Porsche Active Ride, and I've done deep dives on that hydraulic system with air replacing physical sway bars, and the car is much simpler now. It actually only has an 800 volt system architecture and a 12 volt. The suspension runs off the high voltage battery.
Cool.
It's crazy. So no more 48 volt bus, no more 400 volt bus for AC compressor. This car is finally dialed. So then we got a call from Porsche, and they said, can you come to Spain to drive the new car? And I sent Jordan, and that's what you're about to watch now. A brief background on the new car. We have same battery pack, so 97 kilowatt hour usable. It has a pre-chilling function for track, which is cool. So while you're DC charging it up ahead of your sessions, you can say, run max cooling through the entire system, pre-chill everything, so you get the most thermal longevity. What else? It's got a new silicon carbide inverter.
900 amp inverter on the rear for the Turbo GT. So it's just so spicy on everything. And J1 was already ahead of the game in a lot of ways. It still is ahead of the game in some ways. And then they just went and upped it more. So they just keep raising the bar, I guess.
The question for me is, like, this brings Taycan into Plaid levels of acceleration. It's more power. It's like 1,090 something horsepower.
Yeah. More power than Plaid with 2 motors instead of 3. But in my video, I did forget to compare this to the Lucid Air Sapphire, which
That's the
is
big one.
Also 3 motor and a bit more competitive with the pricing.
Right, they're both like $250,000.
Yes.
the Plaid is 90 grand, but the Plaid doesn't have the suspension or the braking package or the steering or the chassis that this car or the Sapphire has.
Yeah.
But it's also not even in the stratosphere of the price.
No.
A lot of you guys know I daily drive a Model S Plaid. That's my car, and it's a great car. Plenty of room, good road tripper, hatchback. I mean, unless you truly modify the Plaid, it's not keeping up with one of these things.
No.
And then if you modify this, then...
And they proved it. They broke some records. I got to talk to Lars, who you'll see in a bit, who did some of those records, and he's just a great driver, fun guy. Dream job, too, I think. So...
Yeah, so anyway, I wanted to give a brief background on the Taycan history, what I've done with the car. I'm very, pleased that you were able to go and represent out of spec, but very jealous. I was doing truck testing. I think I was actually getting the Cybertruck when you were doing this, or something like that.
You were road tripping the Cybertruck back or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, I chose the lame option, but you had a great time, and the video's fantastic. So understand where this falls in the lineup. The Turbo S Taycan is still like top spec, and then the Turbo GT is up from that, and the Turbo GT with Visoc pack is crazy to the max. The pricing gets insane, but actually it's not that bad, because when you factor in that a Turbo S gets up to 220, this is like a bit more.
And Visoc package is no extra, which is kind of
what a deal. What a deal. Let's take stuff out of your car, and we're not going to give you a discount.
Crazy.
And normally they take stuff out and then they charge you more, but no center locks. That was weird.
Yeah.
Little weird stuff on the car. The paddles are interesting.
Yeah.
You'll learn about that through Jordan's video. It's fantastic. Enjoy it. The new Taycan Turbo GT and Turbo GT with Visoc pack. I can't wait to drive them.
So Kyle has already done a bit of a deep dive on some of the new Taycan stuff, and he's already looked at some of the existing new Taycan models. But today we are focusing explicitly on the Taycan Turbo GT, which I'll start with as far as styling and design. So in some of these other Taycan models, the front end is actually a bit too understated for my liking. The 4 and 4S have this kind of front end, whereas if you step up to the Turbo and Turbo S and Turbo GT, basically any Turbo Taycan, that's where you get this kind of design element, which brings back some of this shape from the original Taycan, which is how I like it. So I would basically have to get the actual Turbo models to be fully happy with the design. By the way, this color, as Kyle mentioned, the oak green, is definitely the spec to get. In fact, this is the car that me and Matt Farah drove over here, and that is just it. From the new aero wheels, which look fantastic, to the oak green color, to being an actual Cross Turismo, that's the one to get. Now, this is just a Turbo. Turbo S would be even one step up, but it's still plenty. But here, this is why we're here. We'll start over here with the Taycan Turbo GT. What you get with this is even more aero added down here in the form of kind of a front splitter. There's also, let's see, Victory Gold brakes. Porsche carbon ceramic brakes, PCCB, are standard on this. And these are the new Pirelli P0R tires, especially developed for them as well. There's also some kind of carbon accents. This B-pillar is carbon. And yeah, you do have glass roof on this one. And this is another piece that's a bit different. This active spoiler is nothing new, but there's also an added little ducktail or dovetail or whatever they call it on the back. And so this whole thing can slide up and give you a bit more aerodynamics. And on the back here, you also have this kind of diffuser situation, which is also a bit more aggressive than the standard models, even the Turbo S. The Porsche logo can also be illuminated. That is another option. And of course the Turbo GT badge on the back, which is how people on the outside will know you are quite the spicy person. The Taycan Turbo GT still has the power charge ports on both sides. There we go. And I don't know how it would hold up to certain like extreme ice conditions, but they said it's been tested. One side will do level 2, the other side will do level 2 and DC fast charging. But now we can look at the actual Visoc package, which makes a few changes. On one part, they don't actually have the charge port on this side at all, completely removed. On this side, it is not power. You notice the little wing is gone. It is actually just a literally push to open situation. So in the States, should be just CCS, maybe eventually NACS, apparently. But beyond that, we do have the Victory Gold calipers as well. Porsche carbon ceramic brakes as well, and a bit more aggressive spoiler on the back, and that's the Visoc badge, which is right here, as well as on the actual passenger display area, but there's actually no passenger display because that would be extra weight. Beyond this aero, which adds more downforce to the rear, it's also slightly more aggressive, I guess, underbody stuff, air deflectors. So you get a lot of aero across the entire car. On the Turbo GT, you can also spec the Spider RS wheels or the Mission E wheels, but on the Visoc package, it is only these ultra light ones. That is your only option. Getting on the inside, we'll look at both these cars, but the Visoc has these bucket seats as, I think, an option. I don't think we'll actually get these in the States. Maybe something about safety. Anyways, getting in, oh, they're not the most comfortable bucket seats, but yes, basically otherwise similar Taycan. Where most cars would say push to pass, the Turbo GT does have the attack mode, which actually we'll get to that more later in the driving, but that's a function you can operate with this paddle or with actually pressing on this button right here. Of course, these are the drive modes options, so you can select various different drive modes. If you had the Cross Turismo Turbo like that, you'd also have a gravel mode, but of course this is not made for gravel so much. And even a PASM switch, Port to Active Suspension Management, I think is what that acronym means. Whole lot of acronyms to remember in the Porsche world. If you want to get your kids to school quickly, you would need the Turbo GT because the Visoc package also removes the rear seat entirely. Now that can actually be opened up for a bit more storage.
Before, and woo!
Wow.
You could put 2 tree huas in there.
But otherwise, it's not really the most functional storage area. It's kind of slippery carbon for the most part, so you wouldn't actually probably throw things back there. That's just for weight savings. The Visoc package itself, 157 pounds lighter than the other Turbo GT. So pretty impressive, I think. A lot of weight savings for moving charge port and back seat and things like that. It should be pretty much the same, but not powered this time. So you do have to manually open and close it. Turbo GT badging even in there, and also a bit of underfloor storage, some stuff over there and over there. Even a 12-volt outlet in the back. You'll also notice on the Turbo GT, you don't have the actual vents here. It is covered by the fact that these are all powered across all Taycan models, except over here, you do have functional aero, which you can see right through there, and also on this side, right through there. So these become suddenly actual functional vents. So what does Visoc actually mean? Well, it's actually the location in Germany where a lot of the engineering and development happens for this car. So Visoc package is just, I guess, celebrating the fact that that's where it came from. And essentially what the Visoc package is a lightweight, ultra race-focused Taycan. You can think of it kind of like the Toyota GR Corolla. So what would you rather have, a GR Corolla or this, or 5 GR Corollas because of the price disparity? So even though the Taycan Turbo GT is, of course, very track capable, statistically, maybe not all of you will actually be tracking it, but hopefully you'll at least get out and drive your Taycan like it's meant to be driven, pretty intensely and aggressively, within the limits of the law, please. But anyways, let's actually look at the actual technology under the hood, or I guess I should say under the entire body, because there's a lot that's improved. The specs are basically the same between the Taycan Turbo GT and the one with the Visoc package. That is, again, really just aerodynamics and a little bit of weight savings. But what the Taycan Turbo GT has is just a little bit more performance over the actual Turbo S, which are one or some of those over there. Turbo S is still insanely capable, but the actual Taycan Turbo GT is now over 1,000 horsepower, 18 horsepower at launch control, with up to 1,092 horsepower with peak performance, which is a 2-second peak. You can actually have pretty much all that performance with attack mode, which we'll talk about on the track, which gives you, 10 seconds of boost essentially, and then a 4-second cooldown time. That is different from the push to pass function, which are on the other Taycans, not the 4 or the rear wheel drive, but the 4S and up get the push to pass because you have to have the performance battery plus to get push to pass. It's a lot of P words, but that is a 10-second boost and a 10-second off boost, like cooldown time. This has a 10-second boost with only a 4-second cooldown time. So again, more track oriented. Beyond that, it's the same front motor as the Turbo S, still permanent magnet, same exact thing. The rear motor though is beefed up. You have a, again, permanent magnet, but instead of a 600 amp pulse inverter, you have a 900 amp inverter, and the rear motor is just beefed up to handle the extra power. There's also improvements to the actual gearbox. So the 2-speed gearbox, now both gears are a little bit taller to handle the faster top speed, 190 miles an hour top speed in the Turbo GT, which is up from the well, actually, Turbo GT with Visoc package, 190. This one I think is 180, but all that's up from the 160 something that the Turbo S has. So the rear motor has more power, more capability. The gearbox is beefed up a bit to handle the more torque, 988 pound-feet of torque, but it also can handle the higher top speed, which is pretty fast. The rear motor is up on power, like 107 horsepower or even 29 horsepower, depending on the exact Taycan and everything, but still more power and actual impressively less weight. There's also better power density, which results in, I guess, better cooling. As we've heard before, a lot of the budget in this went towards performance and efficiency. In fact, over half the accumulated budget for the new developed Taycan facelift was for those two categories. The charging, as we all know, is also very, very impressive. It's got the 320 kilowatt peak charging, which it holds fairly deep into the pack, 10 to 80% charge in 18 minutes, which is 2.5-ish minutes faster than the previous Taycan. So the charging curve already was impressive, and now it's even more impressive. With the Visoc package removing the back seat, we literally now have a 2-seat electric Porsche, almost supercar basically. I mean, it's basically supercar numbers. So it's only a matter of time before we see 911, and of course we know Box 3V is coming. So who will be the last holdout? You think 911 will be the last combustion holdout of the brand? I could see that. Are you ready, kids? All right. The original Taycan was already basically my favorite electric car, and they just kind of cranked it to 12. So I'm in the Weissach package, which is equipped with the attack mode, which seems to enhance the sound a little bit too. And it gives me the 7-second timer. I can actually flip the attack mode off, and that will give me 4 seconds of cooldown. That's how it's different from the push to pass available in the other Taycan models with the Performance Plus battery pack. But man, this is so exhilarating. Into the corner. Sticky rubber really is confidence inspiring. The sound of the second gear kicking in is so incredible. It's exhilarating. Switching over to the right side, hard braking, into the corner. Wow, the tarmac on this track is really impressively smooth, but the Porsche Active Ride pretty much accounts for anything else, any other undulations. That felt so great, especially I'm down here at 40% state of charge. Didn't really matter, I still had plenty of power. So with these laps they're doing all day, it is lead follow, but that's okay with me. It's a new track. I kind of want to learn the track and really just experience the car. And this guy is keeping me accountable up in front of me. Of course, I have Jason Finsky behind me. Oh man. The way these seats hold me too is pretty fantastic. And I honestly love the Alcantara steering wheel. I know not everyone likes Alcantara steering wheels. I don't also know how well it'll hold up, but who cares, honestly. A little brush of brakes there. And here we slow down into the slalom, which is almost sickening with how tight these cars can do it. Oh my gosh. There we go. Oh, the feel of the gear shift is so awesome. I'm genuinely a fan of that. I know not everyone loves that aspect, and of course, you know, Tesla, actually most everyone else doesn't do any sort of shifting, but the Taycan with a 2-speed rear transmission is, I think, one of the most interesting aspects of it. It makes an electric car interesting, which is not always that possible. It adds character, and I think that's where Porsche stands out above some of the rest. Oh yeah, the quick 1-2 shifts there. It feels so fun. And I'm not shifting, so I don't have to worry about, you know, doing a track with a PDK, although the PDK can usually handle it pretty well. A little bit of understeer there. Oh, I love that sound. And seeing the active aero on Jason's Porsche Turbo GT in front of me is pretty fascinating to watch that wing kind of actuate. The Weissach package does not have that wing. It has the fixed spoiler instead. And there's a lot of acronyms in the Porsche world. You know, Porsche Active Ride is what I'm feeling all the time. It's basically their new active suspension management system, which is pretty fascinating in how it works. Woo! And basically, they equate it to a motorcycle in the corners, which means it leans into the corner rather than the opposite, which is usually what happens. It's really fascinating to feel it work, but also watch it work, you know, in the case of Jason in front of me. Now, they also equate it to a helicopter if you're accelerating or decelerating. So the car will lean forward with acceleration and lean backward with braking, which is really fascinating. Then there's Porsche Active Suspension Management, or PASM, which I have a knob on the steering wheel to control. The brakes are also really confidence inspiring. You have the Porsche Ceramic Carbon Ceramic Brakes, or PCCB. The Weissach package itself gives, well, like 100-something pounds downforce on the front, over 300 pounds downforce on the rear. So it's a lot of aerodynamics really acting in your favor to bring grip down to the wheels. So maybe that's another acronym, Weissach Aerodynamic Performance. Sending it. So those were the hot laps, now we're down to the cool down lap. At the moment I have 35% state of charge, so a couple hot-ish laps resulted in about 6%. You could really rip around on this for quite a lot of the day. And if the track has DC fast charging, well, there goes all your worries. So if you want to get your kids to school faster, you need a Taycan Turbo GT. Not the Weissach Performance, unless you have one kid. This is Lars. He's the one who actually drove this car, or the one over there with the cage.
It's the one with the cage.
Yeah, and he did the actual record at Laguna Seca, 127.87.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you did the one on the ring as well,
Yeah.
which was 707.55. Good job.
Well learned. Yeah. So yeah, let's see what the thing can do around Seville.
Oh yeah. A little spicier than mine.
Just the tires.
And so you feel like the Porsche Active Ride did a whole lot of improvement with the handling?
Yeah, it definitely did.
It's amazing. Oh yeah.
It's a good tool to have on the hand. I mean, for me, I always keep saying it's interesting because I really didn't like it at first. Because yeah, it
You
felt
had to
like
relearn a little bit?
it felt kind of a little bit synthetic for me at the beginning.
Yeah.
And but over the time they just improved it so well and tuned it to the level we have now, where it really feeds your sensors.
Yeah.
And it kind of tricks physics. Something I really like, because it just loads the inside tires and uses all the grip you have in the car, not only the outside tires. And it's just impressive what you can do with such a car. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
And we have some rear wheel steer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Almost 3 degrees. 2.8, I think.
Yeah, it's the combination, what they made out of it, out of the technical highlights, but at the end it's the package, including tire, aero, everything, which really amazes me. So it's not one thing which sticks out the most.
Yeah. And then I guess something else special is the endurance mode. So as long as you're above 30% state of charge, above, I guess that cools the battery to 10 degrees Celsius, gives you maximum track performance.
It's active at the moment.
Active right now, okay.
Yeah, so maximum cooling to the battery.
Yep.
It really gives us a chance to do a lot of laps around here. As I mentioned, I mean, the tires we already use since 3 days.
Yeah.
It really shows also how the Porsche Active Ride shares the forces for the tires.
So the tires all wear fairly evenly. Yeah.
And you don't use the sidewall, because normally on heavier cars you see quite a lot that their sidewall seems pretty hurt.
Yeah.
But it's also there, for example, on braking, when the car goes lower, it adds camber. So it's kind of, I know a lot of every time you put in a new suspension technology, you speak about it's a game changer, but I think it's really fair to say that this really is one.
This is actually a game changer, not just a minor tweak from before.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's not even a need for sway bars or anything. This is just all done by the corner.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
No, it's really also from just from the driver seat and driver perspective. The car gives you so much safety and comfort driving fast.
Yeah.
The intention from the beginning was not to build a sedan for racing drivers or for professionals. It was really the intention to give a tool for our customers they can work with, which enables them to really experience something new and go to the limit, because as you felt when you were driving, it's pretty easy to go to the limit. And that's not normal for a car with 1,000 horsepower. Because you would think, whoa, hold on.
And the limit didn't feel too scary because the car now is so capable. And I guess you're able to beat the Plaid with only 2 motors, not 3. It's incredible. So
competition is always cool. This pushed just pushes everybody. So I like that.
So the Weissach package saves 157 pounds less weight overall the car than the normal Turbo GT. Can you feel the weight? I mean, it's still a fairly heavy car.
But again, I think it's you never. I can only speak about kilos and tons. So
it's okay. Go for it.
I don't feel the 2.2 tons at all. So I think it's difficult. It's hard to say if you feel like the difference of like 50 to 70 kilos. What's the real difference in kilos? Because the overall weight is already relatively high.
Yeah.
So the percentage is relatively low.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, obviously, over the course of a full Nordschleife lap, this gives you more potential.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty
especially
simple.
a longer stretch.
Yeah.
Every single percentage counts.
Yeah.
And same with part of the Weissach package is the aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Added 300 something pounds in the rear and the front, whatever the
Or
kilos are.
230 kilos.
Yeah, the kilos. And that added aero makes a difference.
Yeah, and at the end, but also there, again, from my perspective, you have to put it in, it's always relative to the mass of the car.
Yeah.
So, in all these like little bits and pieces, at the end, we were like searching for bits and pieces because we already had a really good car. And then it was like minor tweaks to like, okay, find a second here, find half a second there. And I think on the record day, we lapped like 3 laps within 7:07.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So you feel like your record on both tracks, Nordschleife and Laguna Seca, was as much as you can get, or do you think you could pull more?
Not with the car we have at the moment. This was pretty maxed out.
Yeah.
A lot of people are always like, yeah, but it's not standard. There was a roll cage in, blah, blah. But for example, there, I mean, it adds weight. We always compensate this weight with like taking out stuff. So we come back to the standard weight. But it's always weight relatively high in the car.
Yeah.
And as everybody knows, the center of gravity of these cars is pretty low. It's not really helpful. But I mean, me as a driver, I have 3 kids. I'm like, I want to, if stuff goes really wrong, I still want to go home.
Exactly.
So that's like, at the end, that's the reason why we're doing it. So I think that even a standard car maybe could be slightly faster.
Yeah.
But I don't want to try it.
Safety first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
So with your kids, I guess you maybe won't have the Weissach package. Or you just need more cars.
I mean, I think my wife's not going to like the idea that I got to be all by myself with my 3 kids.
Yeah.
But I think for 4 people, that's the fastest and the most sporty way you can transport 4 people.
The Turbo GT.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
And you can still get these seats even with 4-seaters.
Yeah,
So I think that's the pretty much the perfect the perfect car at the moment.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on
Thank
your
you very
records, and thanks for a great drive.
Thank you.
Now I'm on the paddock on the side of the track. Our track time was very rushed, so I have a couple more points to make on comfort. Basically, insanely comfortable. This new air suspension is kind of magical, as Lars described. It kind of just makes everything float. Now, all the extreme leaning and stuff is really mostly focused on the normal driving mode. All the other driving modes can actually have customizations done to tweak the pieces, which is why individual mode is now removed from the car. So you can actually customize the other driving modes, but normal is all about full on comfort, and that's where you can really see the aggressive leaning. The air suspension is such a technological marvel. An actual electric motor on each axle, driving 2 hydraulic pumps per axle, and it's actually hydraulics, which is what is like raising and lowering it. So it's not like air being pumped in, it's hydraulics that can just do it instantly, which is so freaking cool. So you're saying the Turbo S is not enough Porsche Taycan for you? Well, hopefully this is. It has a lot under the hood, a bunch of minor but noticeable improvements beyond the Turbo S. And frankly, I don't know how many of you are pushing the Turbo S to its limit, but if you are, this has a slightly higher limit. So let me know what you think of the Taycan Turbo GT. Pricing starts at, I believe, $230,000, and that's actually regardless of Weissach package or not. I don't think that actually adds any money, which is impressive considering Porsche's history with some of those option features. It does remove some things, so I guess instead of negating some money, they're just charging the same. Beyond that, we should see this car coming to the US by the end of the year. Don't actually know official EPA numbers yet, but I'm sure those will come, and of course we'll be reporting on those as we find out more. So, looking forward to spending some more time with really all the refreshed Taycan lineup, because there's a lot of interesting, amazing improved changes, and I can't wait to try them all out more and more and more. Basically, I want to live with this car as much as possible, because I can't currently afford it.
Cameo
trunk space of the Taycan Cross Turismo, as demonstrated by the smoking tire.
I like how it raised for me and then lowered back down for you. It's great.